Now, let's take a look at the other side of big business, the issues of labor. Inequality defined the Gilded Age for the common worker, and it also defined the American Industrial Revolution. Although the standard of living increased for most people, the gap between the rich and the poor increased between 1860 and 1890. Although most were able to move from skilled labor to professional level jobs over a generation, it still remained that the uh, top 10% of the population controlled 75% of the nation's wealth in the American Industrial Revolution. Working conditions were awful by today's standards. Real wages increased in manufacturing between 1860 and 1890. The average work week was 59 hours, with 10 to 12-hour days. The factories maintained poor health and safety conditions. They were dark, they were crowded, and they were dirty. When we get to the progressive age, you'll see a good example of this in the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. People became dependent on the machinery they used and on distant owners whom they never met. For the first time, someone could lose their job on a decision made by someone unknown and far away. Excuse me. Organizers found it difficult to create labor unions. Many workers were recent immigrants or children. Civic leaders respected property rights over labor rights. Business leaders believed that labor was a commodity. It's something that could be measured and bought and sold. At the same time, workers fresh from the farm tended to have a mindset of being self-sufficient. You might remember that from the New South unit. And quite simply, these workers did not want to join a union. Many strikes failed because the workers lacked organizing power. Thus, they lacked direction and focus. While on strike, the striking workers tended to degenerate into a mob, then destroy some stuff, go to the bar, get drunk, go home, sleep it off, and then come back to work the next day as if nothing had ever happened. The first important union in the United States was the National Labor Union. It founded in 1886. It was composed of delegates from labor and reform groups who were more interested in national politics than in improving the workplace. And it's this interest in politics that will be their downfall. Before their effort ended as a result of the economic panic of 1873, they were able to convince Congress to implement an 8-hour workday for federal employees. The next national group to come on the scene was the Knights of Labor. The Knights of Labor was founded by Uriah S. Stevens in 1869. Stevens was a tailor from Philadelphia who liked secret societies. He believed secrecy would protect members from retaliation from employers and create a sense of solidarity. What it did create was rumors that the Knights were a socialist or a communist society. The Knights saw their greatest success under Terence V. Powderly. Under Powderly, membership grew from 100,000 members to just over 700,000 members. The Knights staged successful strikes against the Union Pacific and Jay Gould's Wabash Railroad, the Union Pacific Strike in 1884, the Wabash Railroad Strike in 1885. These successes are what make the Knights significant, because the Knights produced a blueprint for future labor unions to follow. At the same time, the Knights' success attracted new members interested in tactics, such as labor strikes, and this would be the anarchists. Anarchists believe that the government was an abusive device used by the wealthy to exploit the working poor. This could be any government, democratic governments, monarchies, or even a dictatorship. All of these are used by the wealthy to exploit the working poor, at least according to the anarchist. Anarchists dreamed of the eventual disappearance of government and that revolutionary action could speed the process of becoming a stateless society. On the surface, this sounds a lot like Marxist communism. And it's this illusion that scared the federal government, because any reference to communism in general has never been smiled on by the federal government. Two events brought about the downfall of the Knights of Labor. First, the Knights staged another strike against Jay Gould's Texas and Pacific. It started when a foreman for union activities was fired at the railroad shops in Marshall, Texas, and it soon spread throughout the state because every T&P railroad went to Fort Worth. This is the Great Southwest Strike, and it was broken after Governor John Ireland sent in the state militia and the Texas Rangers to break the strike. This strike failed. The other event that destroyed the Knights of Labor was the Haymarket Affair, and it centered on the International Harvester plant in Chicago over the issue of the 8-hour workday. On May 3, 1886, a clash between striking workers and the local police resulted in the death of one striking worker and one police officer. It also incited a riot. To protest the killing, the Knights of Labor staged a rally. The police arrived just as the rally was about to end. Someone threw a bomb at the police, and then again, it was on. Another riot ensued. Once it was over, the police accused 7 anarchists of starting the second riot. Only one of the 7 of the accused could speak English. The others spoke German. I mention this because paranoia over foreign languages is nothing new. While today it is Spanish and other languages, in the 19th century it was German. The trial itself was marked with prejudice and hysteria, just like any high-profile court case today. 4 of the accused were found guilty and hanged, 1 committed suicide, and 2 were eventually found not guilty. Now you might be asking yourself, how does all this tie back to the Knights of Labor? One of the convicted of the 7 just happened to have on their possession, at the time of their arrest, a Knights of Labor membership card. This is the equivalent to a smoking gun, because now there is proof. The police have proof that the Knights of Labor are nothing more than a bunch of anarchists. That's not true, but that's the assumption that's made. After the Haymarket Affair, the Knights of Labor limped along until finally evaporating in the economic panic of 1893. And by 1900, as an organization, the Knights of Labor had ceased to exist. The significance of the Haymarket Affair is that it turned public opinion against the Knights of Labor and labor unions in general. Taking the place of the Knights of Labor was the American Federation of Labor, the AFL. Now, please don't confuse this with the NFL, the Arena League, or the American Football League. They all have the same acronym, but they're not the same. Founded in 1886, the American Federation of Labor, the AFL, was formed by delegates from 25 craft unions. These unions desired solidarity with each other, but at the same time, they did not want to lose their individual identities, nor did they want to associate with unskilled labor. In this way, they could disassociate themselves from socialists and anarchists. The AFL also differed from the Knights of Labor in that it remained a federation of national organizations, which allowed it greater leverage against management. The AFL wanted to focus squarely on labor issues and not get involved in politics, like the other labor unions that we have discussed, at least at the beginning. Because you could argue that the present-day AFL, the AFL-CIO, is highly involved in politics. The AFL's agenda called for higher wages, better working conditions, and shorter hours. Samuel Gompers served as president of the AFL from the creation of the organization to his death in 1924. He was an immigrant of Dutch and Jewish ancestry, and he had come to the United States as a teenager. Gompers joined the Cigar Makers Union in 1864. In 1877, he became its president. To his death, he remained a member of the Cigar Makers Union. Gompers' talent was that he could recruit. He enjoyed talking and drinking with workers in pubs and in bars. And at the same time, he could negotiate with management. He used the strike to gain labor union recognition from employers. And this was accomplished by forcing employees to adopt the closed shop method of hiring, which is nothing more than guaranteeing that the company's new hire were union members. And what the company got out of this is the guarantee that anyone they hired was not a socialist or an anarchist. By 1890, the AFL had surpassed the Knights of Labor in overall membership. By 1900, they had over 500,000 members. By 1914, they had 2 million members. And in 1920, at the end of World War I, the AFL reached its membership peak of 4 million members. They were particularly strong in the railroads, through the Railroad Brotherhoods. They also made ground in the building trades, such as steel, textiles, tobacco, and meatpacking houses. And even though the AFL had its greatest success in organizing skilled workers, most of the larger manufacturing industries remained untapped at the time. Now, your other video assignment in the American Industrial Revolution is going to take it to labor strikes that the AFL employed against management, but in overall hurt the labor movement during this period. The first is a strike against Carnegie Steel at its plant in Homestead, Pennsylvania. This is the Homestead Strike. And the Pullman Strike in Chicago, Illinois, and that's in 1894. This video is also on D2L. And as always, I'd like to thank you for watching this video, and may the force be with you.